What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So today we're going to take a look at the 2026 Senate map in every battleground state. We're going to take a look at every model that's out right now, and we're going to compare those models to get a good idea of who's ahead in these races. Because if you just look at one poll or just one model, you're not getting a real good idea of who's ahead. We'll look at every model. We did this last week. We're going to continue doing this every week when it comes to the Senate map. So that's what we're focusing on today. But first off, you guys can do me a favor. Please like the video. And if you're watching this video and you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. So let's get right into this video. Now, the first thing I want to take a look at, we're looking at 270 to win first off, and I want to show you the consensus. Okay, so all the maps, we're going to take a look at probably 7 or 8 different maps. And what I like to do, because they're all separate models, is if we can look at these models, we'll see common themes. We'll see different states that are toss-ups, or different states that might favor Democrats or favor Republicans. So the consensus is giving us the broad spectrum, the broad look. So right now, the consensus is showing us that Democrats and independents are at 47. Then it's showing us Republicans are at 50. So on a map like this, even though we have 3 toss-ups here, a map like this is showing us that Republicans are set to take back control of the Senate. And the reason for this is because Republicans are at 50. So if Republicans get to 50, that's all they need to take back control of the Senate, because the vice president comes in and breaks the tie. Now, as we move down and look at some different models, I'll show you that Democrats are favored in some of these models as well. So looking at this map, we went over the different toss-ups. Now, when it comes to Michigan, Michigan is a state that Democrats need to defend. And so right now, I would still say that Michigan leans for Democrats. However, it's a very close race, and I would agree when we're looking at this, it can be considered a toss-up in some of these different maps. But I still think Democrats do have a very slight advantage. We'll have to see how the primaries turn out, because we have El Sayed running against Stevens in the primary, in the Democratic primary. And when it comes to the Republicans, Rogers is most likely going to be the challenger. And so once the race is consolidated, then we'll get better information. Okay, so we have Michigan there. That's the state that Democrats need to defend. Looking at Ohio, this is a state that Republicans need to defend. However, we're looking at Sherrod Brown versus Husted. Husted is the incumbent. He was appointed to that position, so he's never actually won a Senate race before. Whereas Sherrod Brown, he is the challenger, but Sherrod Brown has been a senator before. He lost in 2024. So this is a really interesting race. So you have Sherrod Brown as a Democrat, you have Husted as a Republican. This is going to be really, I don't know how it's going to play out. Looking at some of the latest polling, you have Sherrod Brown up in one poll, you have Husted up in another poll. So they're pretty much trading polls right now. But I would also agree, I think Ohio is a toss-up. Looking at Maine, you guys all know the situation with Maine. Plattner is now out of the race. Now we have a new candidate that will be coming up. That'll be announced very soon, I would imagine. And so that's going to be interesting, because depending on who that candidate is, that's going to determine if Democrats are going to be able to win in Maine. Now, Plattner was doing really well in the polls until the last couple of weeks. And so we'll have to just see, is it going to be Troy Jackson, or who are we going to see as the candidate in Maine? And just 2 months ago, Maine was leaning for Democrats in a lot of these different models. And so these are the toss-ups in the consensus. Now, I want to move to some of the others, because I want to make sure we get all of this in a timely manner. So we're looking at the prediction market, so Kalshi. And what Kalshi is showing us Democrats. We have Democrats at 50, Democrats and independents, and you have Republicans at 49. And so this map is showing us that Democrats have the advantage, as well as Democrats have an opportunity to take back control of the Senate. And when we zoom out, we can see that there's only one toss-up, and that's Ohio. All the other races have been called according to the prediction markets, okay? So, and that's, you have to understand, when we're looking at these models, when we're looking at the prediction market, this is information so if there was an election today, they're saying this is the way the map would look. Okay, so this is going to change, and that's why we should come back and look at this every week, because it will change. So when it comes to Ohio, that's the only toss-up. I just went over Ohio, just talking about Sherrod Brown versus Husted. This is a very, very close race. Right now, it is too close to call. I wouldn't say that Sherrod Brown has an advantage over Husted, or Husted has an advantage over Sherrod Brown. And so we'll have to see how it plays out. But worst case scenario for Democrats is we would be looking at a 50-50. And if we're looking at a 50-50, obviously the vice president comes in and breaks the tie. So Republicans would maintain control of the Senate, but we would be in a 50-50 Senate. Okay, looking at the next poll, and this is coming from Sabato's crystal ball. We're looking at Democrats at 47, Democrats and independents at 47, and then we have Republicans at 49. So in this scenario, we have four toss-ups. Now, Democrats in this map, they have an opportunity to take back control of the Senate, even though Democrats and independents are only at 47. The reason that they have an opportunity is because you have these toss-ups. Now, in a scenario like this, Democrats would need to win every toss-up. They would need to win, or at least defend in Michigan to win it. They would need to win Ohio. They would need to win Maine, and then they would also need to win Alaska. If they could win all four of those states, that would give them 51, and they would take back control of the Senate. So this map favors Republicans because looking at a map like this, all Republicans have to do is win one of these states that are toss-up. Just one. Okay, so if they're able to knock off Alaska, then they get to 50 and the vice president comes in and breaks the tie. So the Republicans would maintain control of the Senate. So looking at the next model, this is the Cook Political Report. You have Democrats and independents at 47. You have Republicans at 49. This is another map that favors Republicans. However, Democrats do have a pathway to take back control of the Senate. So looking at this map, we have four toss-ups again. So looking at the four toss-ups, Democrats would need to win all four toss-ups. If they can win in Michigan, win in Ohio, win in Maine, and win in Alaska, then Democrats would take back control of the Senate. But that's the only way they can do this. This is another map showing that if Republicans are able to win just one, if they can win one of these toss-up states, they would get to 50 and maintain control of the Senate. All right, looking at the next one here, we have inside elections. So looking at inside elections, it's showing Democrats and independents at 45. It's showing Republicans at 52. Now, this is another model that's showing Republicans as the favorites, and we're not even looking at the toss-ups because Republicans have 52. Republicans only need 50, like I said. So if they have 52, they would take back control of the Senate. Now, the toss-ups here, we have our Michigan. So this is a state that Democrats need to defend. Georgia, this is another state Democrats need to defend. And then North Carolina. Now, this is a state that Republicans are currently holding. They need to defend, but it's looking more and more like Democrats are going to be able to win in North Carolina. So when I look at this map, realistically, I don't consider Georgia a toss-up. I don't consider North Carolina a toss-up. I think North Carolina is leaning for Democrats. And so these two states right here, I would say lean for Democrats. It's just, we're not seeing that in some of the other models. We're seeing much different. So this is, in my opinion, more of a model that's an outlier. Okay, now we're going to look at split ticket. This model here, this is showing us Democrats and independents at 49, Republicans at 49. And then you have two states that are toss-ups. And so just based on this model, Democrats would need to win both of these states. Okay, now Republicans only need to win one because Republicans, remember, they only need to get to 50. And so in this scenario, Democrats would have to win both. Do they have an opportunity to win both? I think they do. You have Sherrod Brown, as we stated, in Ohio. And when it comes to Alaska, which we haven't talked about too much, but Alaska here they have as a toss-up. Peltola is doing pretty good in the polling. It's ranked choice voting. I always like to remind people of that. But right now, she does have some momentum. We did see the latest poll showing Sullivan ahead, but that was within that margin of error. But all the other polls that we saw previous, they were showing Peltola ahead. So I think she does have a really good shot at winning. All right, let's look at the next model. So the next model here we're looking at is a race to the White House. So the race to the White House is showing Democrats and independents at 49. It's showing Republicans at 47. This is probably the best model for Democrats. And so looking at this model, you have four states that are considered toss-ups. You have Iowa, you have Maine, you have Texas, and you have Alaska. So if we start with Alaska, so Democrats, they would need to win two out of the four toss-ups. Okay, so looking at Alaska, we just talked about Alaska. I think Democrats do have a really good shot at winning on Alaska. When we look at Texas, I think Texas is, I would consider Texas as a toss-up at this point because you look at Tallarico versus Paxton, they're running neck and neck when it comes to the polls. Tallarico will win a poll, Paxton will win a poll. And so they're going back and forth. I think this race is going to be very, very close. Now, when it comes to Iowa, this is another state. The latest polling coming out showing Tarek versus Henson. Tarek is doing, the last poll showed him ahead, and then the poll before that showed Henson ahead. So they're now trading polls. So we could be in a situation where Iowa is much closer than we anticipated. And when we look at the governor's race, and I always like to go to the governor's race because Sands is a Democrat, he's running for governor, he's leading in most, if not all, of the polls coming out for this governor's race. And that is important because when we look at that governor's race, Sands has a potential to bring Tarek with him. And so they could win together. And then, of course, when it comes to Maine, right now they have it as a toss-up, and I would say that it's a toss-up as well, just because there's some unknown out there. And now the last model here, this is Almanac, and if we're looking at, we have Democrats and independents at 47, you have Republicans at 51. Now understand, just looking at this map, it favors Republicans because Republicans are 51. They already have, in this scenario, they would already have a control of the Senate, and then we would have two toss-ups here, Maine and Michigan. And so even if Democrats were able to defend Michigan and they were able to win in Maine, that would only bring them up to 49, and they would still not take back control of the Senate. And so the main takeaway here is when we're looking at these models, most of them are favoring Republicans. However, as I stated, when it comes to Democrats, it's going to be very hard for Democrats to take back control of the Senate. They do have pathways. You saw in this map, you saw some of the different states, but it's just going to be a challenge. But I want to know what you guys think. So let me know in the comments below. Do you think it's possible? And which one of these Senate maps do you agree with the most? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more. And remember, stay informed, stay engaged, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye. So that's all we have for this video. Make sure if you guys want to send me an email, you can do that, david@thetecshow.com. Like the video, subscribe for more, and check out these videos over here for some more great content. Talk to you later. Bye.